So the next card we're going to do is this Hydrangea one. So we're actually only going to be using distress inks with this one. So they're a little bit more transparent, but we are going to need to make ourselves a mask so that we don't put the leaf over top of the flowers. Because if you were just to put, which is the right one, if you were just to put the leaf stencil here and then stencil it, you're going to get a leaf over above the flowers, and that looks a little bit odd. So in order to do that, you're going to take a piece of copy paper, and then I'm going to use my blending brushes, and all I'm doing is just blending the ink around the outsides. No need to tape this down. All we're doing is getting the image of the stencil. And then from there, you're going to hand cut around it. I've already done it here, and I've used this one for the sample so you can see the green on there. So I hand cut it, and then I took some Tombow Multi and squiggled it all over the back and let that dry completely. So Tombow Multi, when you are gluing two pieces of paper together, it creates a permanent bond. But if you put some glue onto some cardstock like this and then let it dries like a Post-it note. So it's going to be perfect to put over your image on your card and then create a mask in order to get those leaves on there. So I've already got that done, but that's how you're going to do that. So for the flower, I'm going to put my hydrangeas where I want them to go, and I'm going to tape it down. Same as the last card, anything you don't want inked with the color that you're currently using, you are going to mask off with some tape. And I'm just taping my card to the bottom as well, just so that chances are it's not going to shift while I'm stenciling, but why take a chance? And this, I'm probably not going to get it while I'm doing the blue, but again, why take a chance? Let's just have it masked off so we don't need to worry. So I've got a pretty blue here. I'm working mostly around the edges, and I'm going to try keep the center a little bit lighter. And the main reason for that is because when you see a ball of hydrangeas, the center part is the part that's going to catch the most light, so it's going to tend to be a little bit lighter, and the areas around the edges, those flowers are going to tend to be visually just a little bit darker. Not actually, I mean, they're typically the same color. So I do want to try to get it a little bit heavier around the edges, just so it looks like it's got some dimension to it. And you can tell with this one, I'm not getting as much of the ink on the stencil here. It's actually there. Of course, I can't see it on my finger. It's actually there, but it's not nearly as thick because it doesn't have the pigment to it. So I'm not too worried about contaminating my tape, but I am going to still be careful and not put anything over where ink was. So now we are going to match our centers. And they're very easy to see and very easy to match. So this is rather close to the edge, so I am going to tape that. I'm going to put this one on this piece right here. This one here can go on that, and I want to tape this edge here, because sometimes you get so focused on what you're doing, you're not really paying attention to where the edges of those stencils are. So now I'm going to do the centers of the flowers. For my sample, I did it quite dark. And I'm going to do the same, but once again, I'm going to try get it darker around the outer edges or the outer flowers, and then lighter in the center ones. There we go. So now we can lift this up here, and I'm going to take this piece of tape off. And now we are ready to do our leaves. So before we do the leaves, we're going to take our mask here, and we're going to match it to the one we have on our card. Now, I'm not worried about this part sticking. I'm worried about this part sticking, so I want to make sure that that is done correctly. I'm going to put this leaf over here. I mean, basically putting it in exactly the same spot that the card before had it. And you see I reuse my tapes over and over again. Might as well get the most use out of them possible. So I'm going to do the light green first. I didn't mask this part here. So this is why you need to make sure to mask. So I actually got a little bit of that right over there. It's funny, I was so worried about the edges. I did that on this one as well, and you'd think I would have learned the first time, but what I plan to do at some point is get like a little butterfly charm and just put that in that area so that it's not nearly as visible. So I'm going to match that one. This time I'm going to remember to put the tape on that. And then put the tape right there. And over that one there. And now I'm going to do the dark color. Perfect. Get my tape off my card base. And now we're going to do the other leaf. And this part here isn't on the card, so even if I get my stencil in there a little bit, it's not going to be on my card. So I'm going to get some of the excess of the dark color off of my brush here. And then I'm going to do this the same as the first leaf. I'm going to do the light color first. Now my mask is flipping up a little bit here. I can either press it down, and I think maybe it doesn't have glue on that corner, but what I'm actually doing is I'm making sure that I'm not going like this with it, because if I do this, then I'm going to get green underneath. There we go. And now this little bit right here. And there we go, our card base is done. Get all the tape off here. Now what I typically do with these tapes, if they're still sticking, I'll just stick them to my mat, and I will go with a baby wipe and I'll clean them all so that there's no ink on them, and then dry them with a paper towel so they're ready to use for another card. Might as well use them again if we have them. This here, because that adhesive dries like a Post-it note, this will just pop right up here. And I keep that with my stencil, so then I can have that, it's already done. I don't need to worry about doing it over and over again. I am going to add some Stickles to the centers of those flowers, just to add a touch of sparkle. I could wait until the card is completely done to do this step as well. But in the next step where we're doing the card assembly, we're also going to be die cutting and assembling the thanks here. So this might as well be drying while I'm doing that part. And because it's just a drop of each in the center of each, that's not going to take very long to dry. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then I'll see you in the next video and we will do some die cutting and assemble our card.